South Korea has brought broadband to the whole population. And I think that this is something that could make a big difference for the young kids in the countryside. You won't need so many farmers in the future. They don't want to be farmers in the future. But they will want to stay in their beautiful towns and villages. And IT is the great bridge for rural development. And I know one of the companies that is operating here, Satyam, based in Hyderabad, has been doing fantastic work in bringing IT into the villages, not just as services, but as job creation, where the villagers are actually doing IT-based services for the world in rural areas, not in the cities, not in Bangalore and Hyderabad, but in the villages. And this is what Malaysia could be doing, and I think it would be extremely important to do. The next area, very briefly, I wanted to mention is keep your eye on quality of life, not just GNP, especially after basic needs are met. GNP is a fairly poor indicator of a lot that's at stake. Let me give one specific example. Malaysia has achieved great results in public health. Life expectancy's gone from 55 years to 75 years since 1960 till today. But Malaysia is absolutely not immune to the tsunami of heart disease and diabetes that is sweeping Asia. It's stunning what is happening in the health all through this region, because people are sitting, they're watching TV, they're driving their cars, and they're eating fast food. Although the food here is fabulous, but there's a lot of it, by the way. And I'd be worried. Now, frankly, I'd be worried especially for Kuala Lumpur. It's almost impossible to walk in this city. It's a city designed for an automobile. That's not designed for public health in the future. I was in India last week, which is also suffering an epidemic of diabetes, believe it or not, for the same reasons. And I brought with me to advise the health minister of India, the chairman of the epidemiology department of Harvard University. He's a world specialist in nutrition, but his first advice to the Indian government was find places for people to walk and to ride bicycles, because that's the key to avoiding the epidemic of heart disease and diabetes that's coming. So quality of life is essential, and it needs to be designed with the same thoughtfulness as you've designed so much else of the infrastructure. And some sidewalks and bike paths and walking paths in this city could save a lot of lives and improve a lot of daily quality of life in the future. The last point that I wanted to make was Malaysia's outreach to the world. You have a unique success here in what you've achieved. But it's not unique in the sense that it could be shared with so much of the rest of the world. The ways that you have designed creative development programs like the Felda projects, where I had the chance to visit yesterday, one of the projects in Pahang State. Phenomenal, brilliant. Raised incomes, provided livelihoods, provided a holistic framework for people to live with clinics and schools and infrastructure and roads and incomes, job security and the like. Now, 2 weeks ago, I was in Benin in West Africa, and I was in Togo in West Africa, and I was speaking with the president of Liberia. And one thing that all of them have in common is palm oil. The other thing that they all have in common is extraordinary poverty and the desperate need for success stories in natural resource-based development. Think if Synergy Drive and FELDA and the government of Malaysia and the OIC and the Islamic Development Bank and other partners got together to make a major effort in the same shared ecological zone of Malaysia in West Africa. Think of the remarkable contributions you could make to helping the poorest places in the world learn from your success and help themselves pull out of poverty. Think about your important contribution you could make in Sudan. I was in northeast Kenya also a few weeks ago. Now this is a bit different. You're not going to grow palm oil there. It's all camels. It's so dry, so arid, so desperate that when we see crises like Darfur, these are basically ecological, natural resource crises, much more, in my opinion, than they are political crises. We're not very good at understanding that because we tend to blame politics for things when we should be blaming the lack of rainfall and the lack of bore wells and the lack of livelihoods. And if we were thinking more clearly, we'd understand that war and violence comes from desperation and needs development. Now here you are operating in Sudan in a place that has the beginnings of a fragile peace. But there is no way that peacekeepers are going to make peace in Sudan. The only thing that can make peace is development. People that have security, that have safe water, that have livelihoods, that have irrigation, that have agriculture. It's just another example where Malaysia could be a world leader, showing the lessons of success, and by doing so, helping to create the expansive worldwide reach of this country, which will truly befit a world economic leader of the 21st century. Ladies and gentlemen, I have no doubt that you're going to get there. It's been a privilege for me for more than 20 years to be watching and learning, and it's a privilege for me to be here today on your 50th birthday party of EPU. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Sachs. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to open the floor for any questions that you may have directed to Professor Sachs on his talk. A couple, 3, limited to 3. Anybody? Yes, over there. Can you please state your name and as clearly as possible, where you are from?
I'm Trisha Yo. I'm from the Center for Public Policy Studies at the Asian Strategy and Leadership Institute. First of all, thank you for the very enlightening talk, and it's indeed an honor for me to ask you a question, Mr. Jeffrey Sachs. Thanks for the compliments on Malaysia's economic development, and indeed, Malaysia is a resource-rich country success story. I'd like to also refer to an article that you wrote talking about a successful development strategy. I'll just quote from your article if you don't mind, which says a successful development strategy should include 3 components. Number 1, a time path of public investments suited to the national circumstances. Number 2, an economic policy framework to support private sector economic activity. And number 3, a political framework to ensure the rule of law and macroeconomic stability. In your article, you also say that the earnings of a country, specifically the oil earnings of a country, should be turned into public investments instead of private consumption. My question is, what is your personal analysis of Malaysia with respect to these 3 components, especially the third one, meaning the rule of law and macroeconomic stability, especially in light of the fact that we all know much of the country's natural resource earnings have actually been channeled to mega projects and mega buildings. Number 2, the fact that our Gini coefficient is actually rising, the income inequality. And thirdly, there was some reference in the earlier panel to the possibility of mismanagement of projects, meaning alluding to corruption. Thank you very much.